The webinar should run for about 20 minutes and we'll be looking at tips using the camera functions, tips for taking photos, and tips for editing your photos. Let's get into it. So starting with tips using the camera functions itself. The greatest thing about digital camera photography these days is that it's all fully automated. More often than not, you won't need to do anything to set up your photo. So remember, if you're in doubt, just point and shoot. But with the right knowledge, you can take your photos to the next level by understanding some of the camera's functions. So let's explore some of them now. First is the focus function. As I just mentioned, your camera will automatically do the focusing for you. The rule that the cameras follow is that whatever's closest to you or whatever's taking up most of your frame will automatically be in focus. But you might want the camera to focus on something further away in the background. All you have to do is to use your finger to tap on the subject matter. In the short video here, I'm switching between the orchid in the foreground and the palm tree in the background. All I have to do is tap the orchid or the palm tree to bring it into focus. The next function is exposure. Exposure refers to how much light is in your photo. So the more light, the brighter your photo will appear, and vice versa. Again, your camera will automatically determine what the best exposure is for your photo. So most of the time, you don't need to do anything. But there may be some cases where you might want to increase or decrease the exposure. So in this short video, I'll show you how to do this. First, you tap once on your screen to bring up the exposure tool. It will appear as a yellow square with a yellow sun icon next to it. Second, you can use your finger to click and drag the yellow sun up or down. When you drag it downwards, it decreases the light, and if you drag it upwards, it increases the light. If you're indoors and there's not much light, then you might want to use this tool to increase the amount of light to make the photo clearer. Next is the zooming in and out feature. So, sorry about that. If you're familiar with using an iPhone, then you might be familiar with zooming in and out already. To zoom in while using your camera, you can use two fingers and stretch them outwards, just like this example. And to zoom out, you use two fingers, but you pinch them together. Zooming in is a good way of capturing something that might be far away from you. But be aware that as you zoom in, you may lose a bit of image quality. It might make the image become grainy if you zoom in too far. So just keep that in mind. The next function is capturing photos while recording, and this is quite cool. It's not a really well-known feature. In fact, I wasn't aware of it until now. While you're recording a video, you can actually capture photos at the same time. So after you start recording a video, you'll see a white shutter button appear next to the red record button, as you can see on this screen here. Clicking on the white button will capture a photo while at the same time it does not interrupt the video being recorded. The benefit of using this feature is you won't have to switch between video mode and photo mode, and you might be able to get a great moment both on video and photo at the same time. And then once you've taken the video, you can go to your photo library and you will find both the full video plus the individual photos that you took while you were doing the video. So that's quite useful. Next, we have the grid function, which we will just get to the next slide. So in the apologies. You can turn on the grid in the camera by going to your camera settings. A grid can be handy when you want to make sure your shot is balanced and centered. So to turn on the grid, go to your settings app, then open your photos and camera settings, and then just turn the grid to the on position. Next time you open your camera, the grid will be visible. Not everyone's going to want that, but it does help you to make sure everything's where you want it. Lastly, we have a crucial tip regarding the format of your photos. On an iPhone, Apple has introduced a new file type called HEIC. Normally the most common file type is JPEG, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, or most of you should be. HEIC files are commonly associated with photos taken on the latest iPhone models. Apple has made it the default file format. And so the benefits of this format is that the file sizes are smaller than JPEGs, so it allows the user to store more photos in the cloud or on their device. However, if you're creating a project with the AlbumWorks editor, unfortunately our editor doesn't accept HEIC files at this stage. So we suggest that you edit your camera settings to turn off HEIC. To do this, you open your settings app on your phone, scroll down to the camera settings, then tap on formats. Under the format section, you can select most compatible, and that will make it tells you actually in the information that your camera would use JPEG format instead of HEIC. And that way you'll have no problems putting your photos in the AlbumWorks editor. It's easier to do this before you start taking photos. There are ways to convert HEIC files to JPEGs, but it's a bit painful, especially if you're on a Windows computer. It's easier on a Mac. If you do need to do it, we do have a tutorial on how to convert HEIC files, and that tutorial is on our YouTube page. All right, now that we know some of the tools a bit better, let's look at taking photos. Our first tip is to use the horizon line to keep your photograph straight. When a photo is level with the horizon line, it creates a sense of balance. And balance is great in photography because it creates stability for the viewer. You can see here an example of a balanced horizon line and an unbalanced version. So turning on the grid, which I talked about before, is a good way to make sure your horizon line is balanced. Our second tip is to fill the frame with necessary content. So the frame refers to what you see inside the photo. It's up to you what you fill it with, but it's best practice to exclude any unnecessary content. So in the example here, the focus is on the main figure, but on the right example, you can see there's a distracting arm in the way on the left edge. Simply moving the frame of the photo can crop this out, and that way you're left only with the important elements. You can crop things out by zooming in or just moving the focus of the photo. The third tip is to use symmetry to improve balance. We talked about creating balance by keeping your horizon line straight, and you can also create more balance by using symmetry. Placing your subject matter right in the center of your frame is the simplest and easiest way to create symmetrical balance. Here are two examples of symmetry in photos. So with landscapes and buildings, shooting your subject from face on is a surefire way of creating symmetry. Our last tip for taking photos is, when in doubt, keep it simple. As we've said in previous design webinars, less is more. Keeping your photos simple can be a safe way of making sure they turn out great. Think about simplifying the subject matter. How can you capture the photo with the least amount of distractions? So in this example, the photo on the right is far too busy. The people are standing in front of a large mural and it becomes distracting for the viewer. Whereas on the left, all the people are spread out evenly, neutral background, and we can see each person clearly. Okay, so now let's look at some tips for editing your photos. Editing your photos is an optional step that you can take if you want to achieve a certain look in your photos. This comes after you've taken the photo and it has been saved already to your camera roll or your photo folder. So the following tips will be aimed at iPhones, but it's usually a similar process on other phone models. One of the most common techniques is cropping. You might want to crop out part of your image or even change the aspect ratio from rectangle to square. This can be achieved through cropping. So in this video, we'll show you the steps. So first of all, you open your photo in the Photos app and you click on the edit button. It's a bit quick. You'll then see the crop icon down the bottom. It's shaped like a square. You click on the crop icon and you'll be able to straighten the horizon line by sliding left and right. And you can click and drag the edges of your photo to crop it. So you can make it a square size, or you can change the aspect ratio of your photo. Once you're happy with what you've done, just click on the Done button to confirm, or Cancel to cancel your changes. Now we're going to look at editing the exposure of your photo. You can follow along by watching this video. So let's just get to the next page. So again, you open up your photo in the Photo app and click on Edit. There'll be a series of icons just underneath your photo. All of these are adjustment tools to edit the appearance of your photo. We're going to select the second icon, which is exposure. After clicking the exposure icon, you can slide the ruler left or right to increase or decrease the exposure. It gets brighter with more exposure and darker with less. Once you've picked your desired effect, click Done to apply the changes. So if you didn't change your exposure before you took the photo, we talked about that earlier, here's an opportunity to do it after you've finished taking the photo. There are many, many other tools available for editing. I won't go through them all today, but here's an overview of what's available, including contrast, saturation, and sharpness. My best advice is to get in there and start playing around. You can always cancel your edits that you make, but playing around is the best way to learn. And you can just tap on each of the icons on your phone and it tells you what that particular icon does. Once you click on it, there's usually a slider to change things on there. Have a play. It's lots of fun. Lastly, a popular feature is photo filters. Photo filters alter the original colors of the photograph. So a prime example of this is turning your image into a black and white photo. To access the filters, once again, go into your Photos folder and take your photo, click on the Edit button at the top again. Then you'll see the filters icon down the very bottom. It looks like 3 circles overlapping each other. You can then scroll through all of the different filters. As you click on each filter, it tells you the name of that filter. So for example, Vivid Warm or Silver Tone. There's a whole lot of different ones. Some are more intense than others. Personally, I like the black and white options. There's 3 different types there. But choose what you like best and then just click Done once you're finished. All right, before I finish up the slideshow, I have a bonus tip for you that is not technically related to taking photos on an iPhone. However, it is related to transferring your photos from your phone to your computer when you're ready to make your photo book. There are many people out there who don't know the most efficient way to copy photos to your computer. Usually it's plugging it in with a lightning cable, but sometimes Apple doesn't make it that easy and it doesn't always work, especially if you're on a Windows computer. So I find that some of our customers email their photos from their phone to their computer. Not mentioning any names, but Dad, you know who you are. So it's fine to email your photos across if that's the easiest way for you, but it's important to make sure you send them at the highest resolution. Otherwise, they are not going to print well. So let's have a look at this little video. We're going to choose a photo that we want to email to ourselves so that we can get hold of it on our computer. So you click on the mail icon and put in your email address or wherever you're going to send it to, which we're doing now. Then when you click that send button at the top, you're going to get options of what size you want to send it. You must select actual size, very important. Any of the other options will compress your image and they'll be too low resolution for printing in a book. So it might mean you can only email a few photos at a time, but it is super important to use actual size. All right, so that's the end of the slideshow. If anyone has any questions, please send them through to me now. I'll do a quick recap while you're doing that, and then we'll have a look at questions. All right, so as I mentioned, when in doubt, if you're not sure what you're doing, just point and shoot. Pretty much your camera will do what it needs to do. Keep your photos balanced using the horizon line and symmetry. Remember, you can edit your photos before you take them, but if you don't, you can play around with editing them after you've taken them as well. Have fun with applying filters for different effects. You might want a dramatic or subdued effect. You can have a bit of fun there as well. Okay, bear with me one moment. I'll just see if we have any questions. Okay, we've had a, sorry. Yes, so Jill mentioned that she had tried to make a canvas from an iPhone photo and it said it was low quality. Yeah, potentially if you emailed that photo to yourself and you didn't use actual size, that'll be the reason. I've noticed quite a lot of customers do that, thinking that large is large enough, but when it's just not. It needs to be the actual, your camera's capable of taking photos at a very high resolution. So it's really important to choose actual size and that'll keep the original resolution. So hopefully you can go and make your canvas. Alrighty, I don't see any other questions for now. So if we're all good, I'll just finish off by reminding you that our customer service team are here for you with any queries that you have. We're here Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. Melbourne time, and you can contact us by phone, email, or live chat according to the details on this screen.